He's still wearing the ink-black silk of the Prophet's family when they drag him off the dais. 2 guards lock his arms. A 3rd soldier fishes out a thin iron rod, glowing like a sunrise, and presses it, slowly, first to the left eye, then the right. The marble hall that once echoed with Quran recitations now sizzles with the sound of meat on a grill. That hiss, not his scream, is the moment the Abbasid Caliphate flatlines. For over 200 years, the Abbasid Caliphs of Baghdad were the successors to the Prophet Muhammad, the commanders of the faithful. But by the 10th century, that power was a ghost. The Caliph had become a gilded prisoner, and his jailers were the very soldiers sworn to protect him. Just 2 years before our story begins, Al-Mustakfi's own cousin, the Caliph Al-Mustakfi, was dragged from the throne and blinded by his Turkish commander, Tuzun. This was the new politics of Baghdad, a brutal cycle of betrayal where generals created and destroyed caliphs at will. So how do you fall from commander of the faithful to a blinded footnote in under 2 years? Rewind the tape, and you'll find an empire already auctioned off piece by piece by the very soldiers sworn to protect it. Ramadan 23, 944 CE, coins are struck, poets sing, and Baghdad pretends nothing's wrong. The city, which under Harun al-Rashid was the glittering center of the world, is now a shadow of its former self. The complex irrigation systems that fed its people are failing, and its wharves see fewer and fewer ships. Inside the palace, the treasury is bare, and the Turkish gulam, or slave soldiers, who have dominated the capital for a century, are the real masters. They are the kingmakers and the executioners. Al-Mustakfi, 39 and bookish, is chosen by them to be the next puppet. He is known for his fondness for sport and poetry, but also has a noted sympathy for the Shia faith, which perhaps made him believe he was clever enough to navigate the treacherous currents of the court. But as he walks into this snake pit, he's dangerously mistaken, convinced that his sacred bloodline still buys respect. It doesn't. The palace kitchens already take orders from whoever showed up with the biggest battalion that morning. Meanwhile, marching south from the mountainous region of Daylam in Persia are the Buyid brothers, Ahmad, Ali, and Hassan. They are Shia warlords of humble origin, leading an army of hardy hillmen who fight for silver, not scripture. Still, for a heartbeat, the illusion of caliphal authority holds. The Friday prayers, the silk canopy over his head, 100,000 voices lifting his name to the clouds. Even counterfeit power feels warm on your skin until someone yanks it off. August 945. The Turkish general who installed al-Mustakfi dies, leaving a power vacuum. Seizing the moment, Ahmad ibn Buya camps outside Baghdad with 12,000 Daylamite hillmen and a mountain of coin. His politely worded threat is clear. Make me the master of the city, or the city starves. The canals are silted, the granaries are low, and the remaining Turkish troops in the city are in no position to fight. Al-Mustakfi folds. He is forced to grant Ahmad the title Amir al-Umara, or Commander of Commanders. This wasn't a new title. It had been created a few years earlier and had already effectively stripped the Caliph of all military and financial power. The Amir al-Umara was the regent, the dictator. The Caliph was just the symbol. Ahmad also receives the honorific title Mu'iz al-Dawla, glorifier of the state, while his brothers are given similar titles, cementing their family's grip on Persia and Iraq. On the new coins, al-Mustakfi's name sits proudly in the center, a stamp of Sunni legitimacy. But squeezed along the rim is the name of his new master, Ahmad, a constant reminder of where the real power resides. That rim seems to get bigger every month. At night, The Caliph flips through hadith collections, hunting for a verse that blesses a holy man bowing to a warlord. He finds none, but keeps reading. Books don't draw swords. Winter rolls in, and Mu'izz al-Dawla's appetite sharpens. He is a Shia ruler in a Sunni capital, and while he needs the Caliph's blessing for legitimacy, he cannot afford to leave him any actual power. He first demands the revenues of Wasit and Ahwaz, Baghdad's breadbaskets. When the Caliph stalls, hoping his other powerful vassals, the Hamdanids of Mosul, might intervene, grain caravels simply stop. The Buyid army blockades the rivers and roads. Prices in Baghdad triple overnight. Markets are empty, and poets who once sang praises for the Caliph now trade their verses for crusts of bread. Al-Mustakfi signs the decree, handing over the provinces. Next, every judge, postmaster, and stable boy needs Buyid approval. Court etiquette flips on its head. Mu'izz al-Dawla enters the Caliph's presence, helmeted, spear in hand, surrounded by his guards chanting Persian couplets, a flagrant display of disrespect. Chroniclers call the Caliph's humility prudent. Neutral observers call it what it is. He flinches at footsteps. Yet even total submission isn't enough. The Buyids know that as long as a single Qurayshi Caliph breathes freely in Baghdad, any ambitious provincial governor or rival general can hoist his banner, cry, "I fight for the true Caliph," and challenge their rule. For the Shia Buyids, who could not become caliphs themselves, the risk was too great. Their solution was simple and ruthless. Delete the man, but keep the chair. January 29th, 946. A banquet invitation arrives from Mu'izz al-Dawla. Let's settle those pesky arrears. The invitation is a trap. Mu'izz al-Dawla had heard rumors that the Caliph was secretly plotting with dissatisfied Daylamite officers, hoping to turn the Buyids' own soldiers against them. It was all the pretext he needed. Al-Mustakfi shows up with 20 palace guards. They're politely asked to wait outside. Inside, the opulence is a thin mask for the tension. Melons and roasted gazelle pile the carpets. No wine. The host is pious. After a few moments of small talk, Mu'izz al-Dawla unrolls a blue wax edict. Hand over your private estates, the last source of your independent wealth. The Caliph, tired, cornered, and maybe just done with the humiliation, says no. It is his last act of defiance. On cue, from behind the screens, 4 Daylamite soldiers pop out. They pin his arms, shove him face down onto the rich carpets. A 5th man fetches copper basins that were already warming on a nearby brazier. The iron is crude, blacksmith thick, its tip flattened like a coin. They strip him to the waist. The room, once filled with the murmur of feasting, goes very, very quiet. Blinding isn't murder, it's political disqualification. The practice may have been borrowed from the neighboring Byzantines and had become a tool for dealing with rivals in the brutal power struggles of the era. Islamic jurisprudence dictates a caliph must possess sound faculties to rule. A blind man was physically imperfect, and therefore legally unfit to lead the Muslim community. This act wasn't just cruelty, it was a cold, calculated move to neutralize a threat under a thin veil of legitimacy. Salt water is daubed on his brow, a horrifying detail as it raises the boiling point of the skin, allowing the heat to sink deeper and ensure a permanent result. Left eye, 7 heartbeats. Right eye, repeat. The sizzle sounds, witnesses would later swear, like oil on a griddle. Al-Mustakfi bites his tongue so hard that his later jailers find the deep ridges of his teeth along its sides. Vinegar-soaked cotton is used to plug the raw sockets. They carry him downstairs on a litter. Total elapsed time. Less than it takes to recite Al-Fatiha, the opening prayer of the Quran. Mu'izz al-Dawla wipes his hands, splits a melon with his dagger, and tells the court scribe, "Right, today we removed the cataract from the body politic." Al-Mustakfi spends 10 months in a vaulted cell beneath what used to be his own treasury. The guards whisper, part respect for the man who was once their spiritual leader, part terror that his groans might leak out and spark riots among the city's Sunni population. He's given bread, thin broth, and a reed to drink through. He can't see the cup. His captors grant him one concession: parchment and ink. 3 of his poems from this time survive, all meditating on the word basar, which in Arabic means both physical sight and spiritual insight. In one haunting couplet he writes, "I traded my 2 windows for a door no tyrant can close." A door to what? Resignation? Heaven? Revenge? No one asks. Meanwhile, Mu'izz al-Dawla drags al-Mustakfi's cousin and bitter enemy, al-Muti, from hiding. He is the son of a previous powerful caliph, and as a rival to al-Mustakfi's branch of the family, he eagerly agrees to be the new caliph. On January 29, 946, the very day of the blinding, al-Muti is installed on the throne, where he will reign for nearly 30 years as a powerless Buyid puppet. Though he lacked any real authority, his long tenure ironically brought a grim stability to the office, proving that a completely neutered caliph was safer than one with a shred of power. Al-Mustakfi, now surplus to requirements, is moved to a common jail. He dies of a fever in September 949 at the age of 42. His grave is left unmarked. The gravediggers only remember the burn scars under the shroud. Word spreads fast. Caliphs can break. The blinding of a second Abbasid Caliph in as many years sends a shockwave across the Islamic world. The symbolic authority of the office, already weak, is shattered. Street satirists in Baghdad label any decree ink on basalt. It looks official, but it means nothing. This collapse of central authority accelerates the political fragmentation that was already underway. Provincial governors, who once feared the caliph's moral authority, stop forwarding taxes altogether. The Hamdanids in Mosul and the Ikhshidids in Egypt, who were already ruling as independent princes, now have no reason to pretend otherwise. Ambitious rulers no longer seek a diploma of investiture from Baghdad to be seen as legitimate. The Shia Buyids' dominance in the Sunni heartland emboldens their co-religionists, especially the powerful Abbasid Caliphate in Egypt, which now steps up its claim to be the true leader of all Muslims. Even the Byzantine Empire reroutes its embassies from Baghdad to the courts of regional dynasts. Symbolic authority, once torched so publicly, never grows back. The Abbasid state shrinks to just the walls of Baghdad, its revenue reduced to bridge tolls and local orchard rents. For most historians, the later Abbasid period, an age of irreversible decline, begins on the day those hot irons touched the caliph's flesh. Why dwell on one atrocity amid centuries of them? Because this moment is a perfect snapshot of what the great 14th century historian Ibn Khaldun later diagnosed as the death of Asabiya, the social glue, the group solidarity that holds a civilization together. For Ibn Khaldun, history moves in cycles. A group on the periphery, toughened by hardship and bound by a strong Asabiya, rises to conquer a decadent, complacent center whose own solidarity has dissolved. The Buyids, hardy Dalamite highlanders, were that rising group, and the Abbasids were the rotten center. But the Buyids made a critical error. They wanted the caliphate's prestige without its substance. They learned the hard way that legitimacy isn't a crown you can just pick up and wear. It's a relationship built on respect. By brutally degrading the ultimate symbol of Sunni Islam, they damaged the very institution that made their rule acceptable to the majority of their subjects. Later dynasties, like the Seljuk Turks, who would eventually oust the Buyids, learned from this mistake. They kept the caliphs visible and honored, but ceremonial and poor, a symbol without an army. Strip power from your most important symbols without replacing them with accountable structures, and you don't get stability. You get chaos wearing a crown. And so the man who once watched the dawn paint Baghdad's golden minarets ends his days counting steps in darkness, feeling for walls he cannot see. His tragedy is bigger than one blinded prince. It is the tragedy of a dying institution. The Caliphate, the office that had once bankrolled the translation of Aristotle, the invention of algebra, and the creation of libraries that were the envy of the world, becomes a hollow drum that nobody marches to. Power had been slowly separating from the office for a century, but this event made the divorce final and ugly. If that feels ancient, look around. At any office where titles swell while authority shrinks, any boardroom where executives hold the official stamp but not the budget. Power divorced from responsibility rots fast, and that rot spreads downwards. Sometimes the instrument of that rot is a hot iron, and sometimes it's a cold email. History rarely repeats its props, but the pattern is timeless. When those who come to rescue a realm decide that they now own it, the next chapter is usually written in someone else's blood.